Hey everybody, Simon Hudson here in beautiful Squamish, British Columbia with your real estate roundup for the week ending Friday, the 26th of January. Just to give you some numbers we're looking at, there were 14 new listings last week and only 4 sales or transactions occurred. And the total number of listings on the market is 156, which is taking us slightly above the low we had, which was around about 140 during the winter. So listings are starting to come to the market. Interestingly enough, open house weekend this weekend was quite brisk. There were quite a few people out there looking at properties. Of the 14 new listings that came on, what was interesting was it was a real diverse group of listings, anything running from a mobile home being listed to $2 million properties being listed. So we had quite a range of properties that were out there. So there are ones to watch, the new ones that came on. There was one listed at 39824 No Name Road at 834,000. That's an interesting one because it's a townhouse priced closer to the 800,000 as opposed to the $1 million mark. Yes, they are older, but it'll be interesting to see how what sort of activity and response they get in the affordable. Funny how we say affordable with 800,000, but the affordable price range in Squamish right now. Then there was a listing on Copper Drive, that unit on Copper Drive. We haven't seen many of these come up in Britannia, and this is a new listing. Number 62 came up down there, a little bit over $1 million, 1.2 and change. It'll just be interesting to see what sort of response they get on that listing down there. 39248 Cardinal came up, which is your standard family home, around about 2,200 square feet or so. And so it'll be interesting to see what happens with those ones because it's not got a suite. It's listed at 1.6, 1.7, really 1.678. We'll see whether or not that gets some activity, and it's priced relatively well compared to what they were priced at before the winter hit. So we'll be watching that one pretty closely. And then finally, the one at 40207 Kintyre, which has a 2-bedroom suite in it and has had some decent renovations done, listed at 1.789 with the 2-bedroom suite. That one will be one to watch for sure to see what's going on. The bond yield, interestingly enough, this is going a bit into the market, but I do want to point out that the bond yield is consolidating around about 4%. And that's showing that there's some stability in the pricing of the bonds. It'll be interesting to see. We have a GDP report coming out on Wednesday, and then the actual bond auction will be on Thursday in Canada. So those two events will be interesting to watch to see what happens in them when they are. Well, actually, I'll report on that on Friday. I'll make sure I include that in the market roundup. But basically, we are at this really crux point in both the stock market and the housing market right now, which is quite interesting that they're occurring at the same time. It doesn't usually happen that way. But what is interesting is properties are starting to come in the market and they're getting a large amount of interest as shown by the open houses. So the question is, are we going to get contracts written this week and next week? Or will the buyers sit on the sidelines and say, hey, you know what, with the higher interest rates, we're just going to hold back a little bit. We're not going to actually close on some transactions here. We'd like to see prices come down. Or do the sellers decide that they're just going to wait? We had one that got listed this week. We had a client that wrote an offer. They ended up pulling the property off the market. They decided not to sell. Things have happened in the economy that's prevented them from one week to the next selling their house versus taking it off of the market. So that's kind of interesting that that's happening. As I mentioned, the stock market is poised for a significant breakout. As I look at it, it's teetering on the breakout level, so this will be interesting to watch as well. If you want to, there's a section on my YouTube page called The Equity Curve, which I'm going to be doing a little synopsis of the stock market. So if anyone's interested in that, give you tips like, for example, if you're holding a bunch of equities right now, you're probably wise to scale it back and get into the indexes. I'm not specifically just an index investor. I do invest in equities as well, but the thought is that if you are in one thing, it's really easy to pull yourself out if things do go sideways. That is not investment advice. I'm not an investor thing. That's just kind of what I'm doing with my own money. And that's what I see. It's just kind of like one of these things where do you invest heavily in the stock market, or do you just put some money in there that you can access very quickly, in which case index makes a lot of sense. And if you don't have the time to do your due diligence on specific stocks, sometimes the indexes are the way to go. That's what I do. But I mean, again, I'm a realtor. I'm not an investor giving advice. So take it with a grain of salt. And I hope this is helpful for everybody. And I will keep you posted with what happens over this week because it will be a pivotal week. All right, we'll talk to you soon. Take care. Bye for now.